Hi, welcome to the Sales Strategies for Christian Coaches podcast. I'm Justin Janowski, your host, and I remember starting my business in December of 2018, just hoping to make it as a Christian coach. I had a lot of self-doubt. I felt a lot of overwhelm. My goal that first year was $60,000, and God provided beyond what I could have imagined. I collected over $250,000 in revenue in year one, and I've now worked with over 1,000 other Christian coaches, helping them build their dream businesses. This podcast is designed to help you learn how to design your offers, design your pricing, how to sell and market yourself in a way that has integrity and love, but also gets great results, also works. And today I want to talk about how to respond to no. I know there's a lot of charge around no. There's a lot of anxiety sometimes around no. Oftentimes when we think about sales, the thing that we're scared of most is hearing no and having it feel like rejection or judgment or awkwardness between us and the other person. I've had a couple of conversations recently where people said, Justin, I just don't want to be that guy who people are avoiding at church or at the grocery store because we had this awkward interaction. Or I don't know what to do when they say no. And it feels like, do they like me? Is there something wrong with me? Will anybody actually buy from me? And so I think we need to reframe how we feel about no. And I also want to describe for you the strategy of exactly what to do when someone does say no. And I was having a great conversation with one of my clients, Stephanie, last week or a couple of weeks ago. She's an amazing woman, a great leader, a great coach. And for Stephanie, I think her concern around sales centered around this idea of hearing no and wondered if it meant something about her and her own value. And so because she wanted to avoid hearing no, she ultimately found herself probably avoiding sales calls and having a hard time setting goals and having a hard time getting results because she wanted to avoid that no. So the first thing I want to explain is flipping the script on this. Stephanie and I came up with a really cool idea for her that instead of setting a goal around how many yeses she's going to get, how many sales she's going to make, how many calls she's even going to hold, her goal, her metric to track, her scorecard is now all centered around hearing no. She's actually aiming each week to be told no 3 times, whether it's to booking a sales call or to holding a sales call. And we've even set up a prize structure for her that every 15 times she hears no, she gets to go get a massage and celebrate. Her goal is to hear no 15 times. And eventually, of course, then 15 more times and 15 more times. And at some point, Stephanie's going to hear no 100 times as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson. This is part of the game. I've been in sales and coaching and entrepreneurship for so long, and I've heard no way more than I've heard yes. But here's the really cool thing. And by the way, last thing that you need to know about this challenge for Stephanie is we agreed that she would, in a most obnoxious way possible, display her no tracking scorecard somewhere in her house where her husband could support her with it. This isn't for everybody, but for Stephanie it is. She's going to have that in her kitchen. And she's going to have Post-it notes all over the place so that she can take the next Post-it note down or put the next Post-it note up and mark the no's and slowly celebrate. Oh, cool. Only 3 more no's before I get to get my massage. Only 1 more no this week to hit my goal of 3 no's a week. And for her, this is reframing no as a normal, expected part of the process. And in fact, the thing that we're tracking that she's going to set her goals around, because we know that the more times she hears no, the more times she's going to hear yes. When she gets 15 no's, there's a good chance she's going to have a yes or 2 or 3 in there. When she gets 100 no's, she's absolutely going to have a bunch of yeses sprinkled in. And so this is reframing it and making it a little bit more fun for her. And so if that sounds valuable to you, do the same thing. You could take what we call our 100 no's challenge and actually start tracking. Put it on a whiteboard. Put it on your chalkboard. Put it on a piece of paper and just like X out the numbers, 15, 14, 13, whatever the number is for you. It could be 100. But that 100 no's challenge says this, like if you can just race to 100 no's, by the time you've heard no the 100th time, you're going to be so much more comfortable with it. It's going to feel so much more natural, and no question about it. By the time you hear 100 no's, you're going to hear a bunch of yeses, and you're going to be encouraged by it. And your skill set development is going to be so strong in those 100 no's because you're going to get the practice that you need. And some of us are avoiding no so much that we're limiting our capacity to practice, we're limiting our capacity to hear yes, and we're getting in the way of our own success. So take on the challenge with us. Start setting, if you need it, start setting your goals around hearing no a certain amount of times. Set a reward for every certain number of no's that you get. You can reward yourself with something so that it can be something that you're actually working towards, and you begin to reframe as the truth, which is that actually hearing no is a natural step of the process towards hearing yes and achieving all of your goals. It's something that we should expect, embrace, and be willing to receive. It's just a marker of you actually doing the real work to have success as a coach, entrepreneur, and salesperson. Now, here's the other thing that I think was holding Stephanie back was the question of like, what do I do when they say no? Is it just this kind of awkward ending of the call? And here's what I want to tell you. When they say no, we can respond with love and respect. And when we do, they're going to love and respect us, whether they say yes or no. And one of the easiest things you can do if you're working with Christian clients is just close the call by praying for them. So if they say no, I always want to tell them that the door's wide open. This doesn't close the opportunity. I'm always here for them if they ever want to talk about this again. And then I'm either going to pray for them or direct them to a free resource or ask for referrals. These are three different things that you can do to close the call. So if I'm working with Christian clients and they say no, I might say, I totally understand. If the timing changes in the future and you ever want to consider working together, let me know. I'm here for you. The door's always open for us to talk about this again. Before we wrap up the call, though, could I pray for you? They're going to say yes. And you can say, awesome. God, I just want to thank you so much for John and the way he showed up in this call. God, I want to thank you for the big vision he has, the goals he's working towards, the things that we shared about today. God, I want to pray that you just give him the courage to conquer the challenges that he's facing or the things that might stand in the way. God, I pray that you bless him and his family and his business. In Jesus' name, amen. John, thanks so much for meeting with me today. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we wrap up? And that's the end of the call. You can imagine that if you're prepared for no, you're not surprised, you're not awkward, you don't get strange, you just accept it, you tell them it's okay, like you understand, and they can come back to you in the future. This doesn't close the door on opportunity. And then you ask if you can pray for them. You just pray like wonderfulness, all good things over them. You wrap up the call like that, they're going to feel great, even though they said no. And the truth is, you'll probably feel great at the end of that call, even though they said no. The prayer is going to put you in the right mind frame and help you end the call on a high note too. Now, the alternative to this is often a free resource. If you don't work with Christian clients, maybe the prayer isn't appropriate, but you can direct them to your free podcast, or you can make a referral to something else that you think could be valuable for them. Or if you had nothing to refer them to or recommend them to, you could at the very least just say, hey, do you have any other questions before you wrap up? Anything else I can do to help you? You can just end in a generous way with generous language after no. So it might sound like this. I totally understand. This isn't for everybody. Listen, if things ever change in the future, come find me. I'd love to continue the conversation with you. I'll be doing this for a long time, and I'm always happy to help if I can. Before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Anything else I can do to support you? Or before we wrap up today, I do want to make one other recommendation for you of something that could be helpful. I know it doesn't make sense to start in our sales school today, but we've got free resources available, free training that we do every week on our podcast called Sales Strategies for Christian Coaches. Go ahead and check out the podcast. Here's the link to it. There's like 140 awesome episodes in there, and each one can help you a little bit. That's especially, by the way, nice for somebody who wants to work with me but can't afford it, is to send them to some free training. So that's an option. And then the other thing you can do is you can ask for referrals. You can say, I totally understand. The door's always open if this is a better fit for you in the future. Before we wrap up, could I ask for your help? Awesome. I really enjoyed meeting with you today. As you know, I work with Christian coaches. I'm building a really cool community for them. And I'm curious if you might know one or two other Christian coaches who you think I should be talking to. And just asking simply for a referral. And if they know somebody asking, would you be willing to put us in a group text or a group email chain so that I could, invite them to a conversation? And whether they say yes or no, then you can still close with prayer and or great, I totally understand. Like, thanks for having this conversation with me. Is there anything else I can do to support you before we wrap up? And I think like if you have a plan for closing on a high note, the end of the conversation is going to feel good for you. It's going to feel good for them. It's going to feel normal and natural. It's going to make everything feel good. You're not going to have to avoid anybody after no. You're not going to have to feel bad or take it personally. Because one other thing to note is the no isn't personal. It oftentimes isn't about you at all. It's about their budget. It's about the season of life that they're in. It's about their time availability. It's about their gut instincts. It might even be about their own fears or their own self-value or self-worth. There's so many reasons why someone says no, and it's rarely something that's really personal and directed towards you. It's usually something that's totally innocent and loving, and they just want to end on a high note as much as you do. So you having a path there for both of you is going to be really helpful. I hope that this is helpful. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Listen, if you love the podcast, I'm recording this podcast episode on my birthday week. My birthday wish is that if you love this podcast, you think it's really valuable, I would love for you to give us a review. That's going to help other people see our podcast more often. And I hope that we can continue to be a blessing to many Christian coaches and entrepreneurs. Please give us a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It's a great place to review us so that we show up higher in the search results. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and have a great rest of your week. See y'all soon.